WLPN LP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio. Welcome, you guys. Happy Memorial Day weekend. It is your host, Stephanie Graham, and I'm so happy to be back here with you today with the one and only Kimmy Noonan. Kimmy,
hi.
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy that you are here. Thank you for being here. You know, one of the things that I just love about you, Kimmy, is that you also have a podcast.
I do.
Yeah, what made you, let's just get right into it. What made you start, or you know what, or should I say, you guys, Kimmy is an artist.
Start at the beginning. It's a good place to start.
Yes, Kimmy's an artist. You know, is your work collage based? Because I always thought it was like painting.
No. Painting, I feel like I don't call myself a collage artist without feeling like a poser.
Okay.
That's just something I do when I'm with my kids hanging out, kind of for fun. But, but whatever. What do we all, these titles, they're all ridiculous.
Really.
We all do all the things. Yeah, so undergrad I did painting.
Okay.
And then I had an existential crisis where I wasn't sure if painting had a purpose in the world or if it was just a part of this big money market. And I was like, in my 20s. And then I went to grad school, University of Chicago.
Okay,
Shout out. And I did mostly time-based medium, performance, like delegated performance, things like that.
Ooh, what's delegated performance?
Yeah, it's a phrase that one of my professors, Tanya Bruguera, who's a Cuban artist, she coined it as far as I know. Maybe she didn't, but she did for me.
Yeah.
But it basically is like creating a set of boundaries in a space and asking other people to do something within those boundaries, giving them instructions. So I'm not the performer. I'm not doing the odd, awkward performance thing, but I'm asking other people to do it and delegating this to them. Yeah, so she did really amazing political pieces using this sort of technique, and the viewers got to experience it, but kind of like hiring actors or hiring people. So I started that in grad school. It was very helpful for me to think about things outside the box a little bit. I also lived in Logan Square and commuted to Hyde Park every day on the train and didn't have a car. So I went from painting like 6-foot paintings to I need to be able to take my work with me on a train.
Yeah.
So I was like computer, like USB drive and sketchbooks, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then after I got out of school and, emotionally recovered from grad school, which took like 10 years, it's hard. And then I got a studio again. I found myself going back into painting.
Okay.
So it was kind of this full circle moment. So I'm kind of painting more now, but I do a lot of social practice and, trying to, make art relevant to people, because art's kind of sometimes it's just stuck away in a museum or in a gallery, and most folks don't know what to do with that. And I grew up as like a blue-collar kid, and I didn't go to those places as a kid, and I've got a lot of family that still don't. So I'm always in this kind of tension of figuring out, like, how do I make work that's accessible, that's relevant, but also still really challenges complex ideas and highlights the stuff that we're going through. So, I just use a lot of different mediums.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody always uses a lot of different mediums. People are always trying to make folks just do one thing. But then as I progress more in my career, it's like, that is actually not true. It's probably easier if you're like a coach to coach somebody on one thing, but nobody does that.
That's true. And it's easier to say, I'm a fill in the blank. I'm also a photographer. Like, there's no, and I hate that feeling of not being able to put myself into a box that's convenient for Instagram or whatever, because that looks good, but it doesn't, I don't know, maybe my brain doesn't work that way or something. But
yeah. I'm really intrigued by delegated performance. I'm going to look that up later. It makes me think of when you say Instagram, like the kids that are always doing pranks, like could that be like a form of delegated performance where they're like making people do stuff?
Probably. Yeah. And that was always something for me that was hard, because I was like, I couldn't view myself as a performance artist because I was like, I'm not confrontational enough to want to like freak people out, like out in public, and they're just like, oh, I don't know what's happening here, and I feel super uncomfortable. And some performance artists live for that stuff, but I was like, I'm Midwestern, and I'm kind of friendly, and I don't want to scare people. But a delegated performance was interesting because I could create rules around it, and it's like, this is an art space. You know, this is an art space. You're coming to see art, but it's unusual art. So like, do you want an example?
Yeah.
Of like, so in my thesis project at University of Chicago, I had art, quote unquote, air quotes, up on the walls. I had made stuff that people could look at, and I had a solo show, and people knew they were coming to an art gallery to see art. But in the corner, kind of the real project was that I had hired a court reporter, a stenographer. So like those people that type really fast, with like some limited number of buttons. And I had to go all the way to Indiana to find a stenographer that actually still had the like analog machine, because it had gone very digital since then, and this was back in 2009 even. So I found this young woman, and she hauled her machine up to Hyde Park. She sat in the middle of the side of the gallery, kind of off to the side, and I gave her the instructions. I was like, you need to record everything that is said in this gallery for the next 3 hours. And obviously I know, and she knows, that's impossible because it's a pretty big gallery. It's echoey. There's going to be lots of people in it. So she's sitting there trying to fulfill the thing that I'm paying her to do desperately. And, poor thing, she looked like she was on the struggle bus. She was like, sweating and like reaching for like, who's saying that? What are they saying over there? And every 10 minutes, this paper roll would grow off of the machine with this code on it that you couldn't understand. Every 10 minutes, one of my classmates would rip off the paper and just hang it on the wall next to her. And over the course of those 3 hours, this wall went from empty to this like grown, huge sort of rainbow paper installation, sort of full of code that no one knew how to translate.
And stenographers have a code, right?
It's all like sort of really basic
like shorthand.
Symbols. Yeah, it's kind of sound based. So the woman is like dead on her feet at the end of it. She's like, oh, "Don't ever ask me."
I know. I was like,
do
she's like,
anything
"Don't
again.
ever." No,
I don't like art. But the people who were there to look at art, actually, the sound of their voices, the sound of them thinking about the work, talking to each other, socializing, became the crown piece of the show. And they didn't even know that was going to happen. So then sort of this idea that they became the art. But it's this invisible force, that the sounds that they're making, but it's also this disjointed conglomeration of wild sounds. It's not like a podcast where we just talk one at a time,
Yeah.
And then I asked the stenographer to retranslate those back into English for me. And she sent me that digitally. And then like a couple months later, we had another group show as a class in the same gallery. So I had a microphone and a screen, and I had transferred these translations into basically like small poems.
Okay.
As she had written them. And they're chaos. It was just wild and wacky, like disjointed stuff. And asked the people to reanimate them into a microphone. It's basically like put this thing that we collected that was invisible back into its invisible landscape.
Oh, cool.
But it's been jostled and rearranged in the way that humans rearrange things just by living.
Yeah.
So that's an example. At the very end of grad school, I was like, oh, I learned something. Finally, it went all the way into my brain. But
that sounds like a cool project. Would you show that again, or would you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would love to show that again, actually. I never think about that. I always live in the present, moving toward the future. When something's happened, I'm like, well, wash off my hands with that, and it was fun.
Yes.
But there's so much to be found in redoing things and learning from them a second time or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like in my own work, I'm always bad at that too. Like, I'm always moving forward on the next thing. Mm-hmm. But then I had a studio visit, and they were like, no, show that work. And so I had this one project, Golden Kids, that I showed at Boundary. And my dad was like, that's old. He's like, you still showing this? Like, you did that years ago. And I'm like, see?
Well, yeah, there's like a voice inside our heads that's like, well, if you're showing old stuff, it means you're not making new stuff.
Yeah.
As though somehow the old stuff isn't still relevant or can't be valid again in new times, Yeah.
I know. It's like, show the stuff all the time, forever.
And we made it. Don't put it in the closet.
Right.
I'm literally pulling stuff out of my closet right now. I'm like spring cleaning mode. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh, it's fun to look at how far I've come and how not far. Like, oh, this piece is similar to the piece I'm making right now. Huh,
Yeah.
I'm still the same person.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't hold on to this stuff forever.
That's also like when people ask you to put dates on work. And it's like, I don't like to do that anymore. I had another studio visit where a lady's like, oh, this is like older works. And I'm like, yes, but I'm showing it to you because you like portraits. So I'm showing you like portraits, all the portraits that I have.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
Yeah,
I'm like, you know what, next time I'm not putting dates on there. She
think
would
I
only
might
know
stop
that
doing that
because
too.
I had the dates on there.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. So I'm like,
I might stop doing that too. I feel that way about my older work. I look at it and go, oh, I made that in 2022. Bull.
yeah.
I'm like, that wasn't that long ago. But that's psychologically, yeah, that could be a
Yeah.
good tool. I like
know.
that.
I'm like, don't. I was like, if I wouldn't have put that there, she wouldn't even comment it on. Now she thinks I haven't been doing anything, and I have.
Why do we always have to prove that we're working?
Yeah.
It's a hustle.
I don't like that.
I don't either.
How do we stop it?
I don't know. I think we have to stop it.
Yeah.
We have to just
like right now.
But it is helpful to have other people that agree.
Yes.
Because if there's just one person out there being like, blah, 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 then you feel like you're the lone weirdo and it's just a system that works for everyone else. But if more than one person's like, no, this is crazy, then you're like, yeah, maybe we should all stop doing this. I'm
Right.
empowered.
And also, like, folks with older work, it's like a lot of people's work I haven't seen. Like, I've never seen your photography or
Right.
this art project. So it would be new to me, the work
Right.
you're exploring.
I like that. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
All right.
It's a
starting
movement.
right now. Listeners,
Stop
Charlie.
Stop putting dates on your stuff.
Yeah. Well, so you have been working. You've been working on your podcast. And, I'm a part of this other, like, podcast collective called Feminist Podcasters Collective. And I've been, like, a part of podcasting, right? Like, getting in the podcasting world. And it made me think, like, oh, I should start an Artists with Podcast Collective because there's a bunch of artists with podcasts.
It's a popular thing to do. It makes me feel sad how popular it is because I just jumped on the ship. But I'm just not going to think about that. It's fine. We need more good content out there.
Yeah. What made you start your podcast?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the very far backstory is that I have this amazing husband who's a gift giver, and he gets me gifts like years before I actually want them. But he knows me so well that he sees the like trajectory of where I'm going, and he's like, I have a feeling you're gonna need some really good mics and some sound balancing tools for your future.
Wow.
I know, and so he gives me these gifts, and I'm like, thanks, babe. Like, I don't need this or want this, but okay. And then I just have it. And then because he knows me, he's like, oh, those wheels are going to start turning. I see her. She wants to talk. She's got things to say. So he's like my number one encourager, advocate, person who's on my back, just pushing me forward a little bit when I don't want to go. But then, over a couple of years of having these mics, not doing anything with them, I was just growing. I was like, I'm an external processor. I'm sitting in a studio by myself, trying to convince myself that I'm an artist. And I'm not doing a great job at it because I'm just like constantly in an existential crisis forever. And, I have 2 kids, so I had this big chunk of 10 years where I was making very little work because I was the primary like stay-at-home parent with them. And that gets in your head. That's a trip, because you're like, well, if I'm not making, if I'm not selling, if I'm not fill in the blank, am I an artist? Or do I have anything to say? Do I have anything to share? Is my brain mush? And at some point, finally got enough traction. My kids were a little older. I had my studio, was working again, but I couldn't get my ideas to connect in my brain because I was like, what am I going to stand in my studio and talk out loud?
Yeah.
Like to myself, it's just so strange. And also, even if I did do that, there was no way to go back and find out what those ideas were after I'm just speaking them into the air. And so I decided to I'll record it and see what happens. I'll just record it. And it was like a shower idea, like empowered in the shower, and just decided to turn on the mics and see how they worked and start talking into them about my ideas and my, the behind the scenes stuff of what I was struggling with. And then I had beautiful friends who were like, hey, I love what you're doing. Your voice is so great.
Yeah.
And you've got such things to say. Your words are the greatest. And I was like, I love you. And then they said, can I come on? I'm like, well, sure, you want to? So then they came to my studio and we talked about what was behind our art, both of our art practices together, kind of like we're doing right now, very organic. And I found out I just loved it. I was like, oh, it gives me external processing. It gives me encouragement.
Yeah.
I connect with other artists and other people who are amazing, and they have the opportunity to stay connected to each other, and we build a better, more thriving arts ecosystem.
Yeah.
In one of a billion ways that, we're trying to do that as a community. And so that's how it started, and I'm still doing it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm sort of like your husband just being like buying you mics.
He's great.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Where did he think of that? Do you know? Like he's just
I
like, you know
should
what?
ask
I'm gonna
him.
get Kimmy some mics.
Kind of. I mean, his love language is so much gifts, which I have failed at for like the almost 20 years we've been married. Mm-hmm. Just the poor thing never gets a good gift from me because I'm so bad at it. But he like just thinks so much like, what does she love and what does she need?
That's
and
really nice.
Yeah. So he's done that many times.
He gave me wasabi seasoning. Remember that?
Yes.
Yes, that was so great.
He is a gift giver. It means he loves you.
Yes, that was so nice. I'm like making salmon. Like, you know what? Let me put this wasabi seasoning on here.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So like, do you consider your podcast like in your work, as a part of your work, or is it like a brainstorming for yourself, or how do you see it?
That's a good question. I think it oscillates from day to day. If I'm in my best mind, most confident self, it's totally a part of my practice.
Yeah.
Those boxes that you have to live in, there's such a deep, maybe we learned it in school or I don't know what, but when I get into those boxes, then I'm like, no, the podcast is a different thing, and I should have a different website or a different Instagram account. And it starts becoming this like marketing thing, and I'm like, how do I get more listeners? And then I step back and be like, what am I doing? I have a very small amount of time in my day, in big picture too, like limited time. Is this actually part of my practice? Like, does this echo all the other things that I'm trying to do? And sometimes it's nice to step back and be like, accidentally discover that it is a part of your practice. Yeah. Because it's like it comes out of us. It's always all this different stuff that comes out of one person. The connection point is the person. Yeah. So if I love it and it's bringing me life and I'm finding it creative, then it probably is connected to the rest of it. But then my assignment to myself is I sit down and figure out how is it connected. If it's a part of my practice, which I'll just fake it till I make it and say, yes, it is, then how? So then, with me, I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, I have been trying to turn invisible things into something tangible and emotive my entire art career. So sound, voice, communication with other people is an incredibly real, tactile form of invisible, meaningful things that we can't see, but we feel. Yeah. So if I use that as a medium, then it makes me feel better that all this time I'm putting into the podcast isn't taking away time from my practice. It is a part of my practice. Okay. And but it feels different because I'm not pushing paint or, I don't know, building stuff. So, but it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. It is.
Yeah, it does feel different. I wrestle with the same things, thinking like, oh, is this a business? Like when I'm at, collective meetings where I go to like a trade show, I'm like, why am I here? Like, am I balancing it with like, should I be at this podcast conference or should I go to a photography conference or an artist conference or, but then it's like, well, this also needs to be good. Like there's a skill set to that as well. Like you want to put it together, and because, having conversations with people, one of the things that I was really interested in with starting my show was also as a way to like archive folks talking about their work, because I love to listen to artists speak about their work. And, I might look up, Kimmy Noonan and not see anything. Even though I've been to your work, even though I might have been to your show, I might not be able to hear how you speak. But now there is going to be a way, like through your own show, but also like through mine. So it's like I'm always looking for, where I'm talking to people. And it's like, no, I do need to have these skills, because there's people who might not have podcasts or microphones, and you have to bring folks in through, teaching them how to work with the equipment and work with the mic and get a good recording. So it's like, no, I do actually need time.
There's a craftsmanship to any kind of thing we create. And I spend a lot of time on my show because I want it to be good. And I feel like that's also consistent with how I feel about all the other forms I do. I'm like, I'm not satisfied with only knowing 2 inches of how to do something. I want to know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I also learn on the job always. Like, I'm like, oh, I want to make pottery. I don't know how to do that. And, then you start making pottery all the time, whatever. That's an example.
Right.
I'm not making pottery. Don't need to start yet.
Yeah. But I feel like even to somebody listening, I feel like they can relate, where if you're doing something and you're like, this isn't what I want to necessarily be known for or, focused on. I'd rather this work, just figuring out that balance. Because I'll have folks, say, oh, Stephanie, you're working so hard. And I'm like, I'm not. I haven't made, like, any real images. I'm, like, playing with these ideas. But I have been putting out shows or coming here. So, yeah, I guess it is work. But it messes with my mind a little bit.
Maybe it's also kind of an artist thing. Like, I feel like we as artists are always like, everything we do needs to represent us.
Yeah.
But like my husband goes to like an office job and he works for a company making stuff they want him to make. And he's like, this doesn't represent me. I'm getting a paycheck for it. So there's just a totally different mentality that I think artists have. Yeah. And I'm letting myself kind of like, maybe I can have lots of skills and I don't have to be, it's not a brand. Like everything I do doesn't have to represent me in every way. Yeah. Even though it kind of does. But I found myself I'm an editor now. Like I edit my shows. Before I had a photography business for 8 years and I spent most of the time not taking pictures, editing pictures. Yeah. And I'd always be like, why do I get myself into these situations? It's so boring. Why do I always edit? But then I realized I was like, you know what? Maybe I am good at this. Yeah. Maybe it's important. Maybe even making art requires editing. Yeah. You have to constantly like pull stuff out and rearrange and figure out who your audience is and how to communicate with them. And that's kind of part of the job, but it's not, it's a little bit more sexy when it's like, I'm going to make this for a gallery and it's going to have my name on it,
Being an artist is sexy.
It really wants to be.
Until it's like paperwork time.
Yeah.
The admin stuff.
I don't like that.
No, I do not like that at all. I do not like the marketing stuff at all. I do not like it at all.
Yeah. That's another thing. If I was to list what do I actually do with my actual time as a job resume thing, I'd have to put like marketing. I'd put entrepreneur on there, which that sounds like a word that makes no sense for me.
Yeah, like we're tech bros or something.
But exactly. But I'm like, but I keep starting businesses if you look at it in the traditional sense of the word. Like even being an artist is a business.
Yes, it is.
You gotta make money, you gotta pay sales tax, you gotta, blah, 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 blah. I think all artists should probably have like a minor in business.
Oh, yeah, by default.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I had to learn it the hard way. But why don't they teach us how to do taxes?
I know.
Like, why?
I know. They need to. But you know what? Even though I've always had that advice, like make sure you take business classes at like the community college, get an associate's degree in it and all that. But I'm like, that does not sound fun.
It doesn't.
Nobody teaches it.
How do you stay awake during those classes?
I know.
Enough to learn how to do it. Maybe we're just learn on the job people. Maybe that's part of the identity of an artist is you learn how to do it while you're doing it.
Right.
You know, you stay awake because you're doing it and you're panicked about doing it poorly. And like, my taxes will be beautiful.
I know. Yeah, like I'll have like pretty folders and all of that. Yeah, I just have an accountant.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, no.
Well, did taxes one time, but the person I would go to, they sort of messed them up. Mm-hmm. And then with with the film jobs and all that, it's always like a 1099, you know, a W-2. Like, it's all this different stuff. So I'm like, I'm afraid of this.
It's so scary.
It is scary. And the last tax person said that I was in school, and so I was getting all this money back until the IRS was like, hey, we don't have your school schedule.
You're not in
and
school.
I'm like, what? School schedule? And so I had to pay all this money back.
No.
And so now I'm like, you know what? I don't care how much it's going to cost. I just need to get like a legit person. But I would love to know what she's doing.
Yeah.
I should ask her if I could sit in. But she would be like, no.
No, you're paying me to do this.
I know. She's like, I am not a teacher. This is my job. Get out of here. Pay me and just get out of here.
Yeah, no, that's scary.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I never feel less like an adult than when I'm dealing with taxes.
Man, for real.
I'm like, am I still 16? Should I call like my dad? Then I call my husband. And I'm like, oh, I still am a kid.
Oh, yeah, forever kid, especially with taxes. I cannot. It's so tough. It's so tough. But they make it seem so easy.
Yeah, it is not.
No. I think that
But I do really like the podcast. I feel like I'm giving it a hard rap. I like the podcast.
Yeah, no, of course.
It's beautiful and fun.
Yes, it is.
And at the end of the day, I want to be around people as much as possible talking about art.
Yeah.
So it's worth all the other stuff, you know.
I love to talk about art all the time. It becomes, I was going to, there would be these studio visits, like an open studio visit, right? Like a curator would come in and you would share your artwork and they would go around. And I felt like I was at the NBA game. I would just sit there with my drink and just listen to them critique these artwork. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. I'm like, you don't get their work at all. Come on, man. You know, I'm like,
the feeling of that kind of gives me hives, though, a little bit.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you know, let's see. We have to take a break, and we will be right back.
Hello, my name is Kimmy Noonan. I'm a visual artist and mother based in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm also the host of Kimmy Not Kim podcast. For the last 20 years, I've been an artist. It's an interesting career because it's a business, an identity, and kind of hard to explain to folks. Despite art being all around us all the time, I've discovered that most people have trouble knowing how to approach art and how to talk to artists about their ideas. So on Kimmy Not Kim podcast, I lead us into the lives of living artists as we talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why it matters. Are you an artist looking for encouragement and ideas? Have you ever gone to an art museum and felt secret shame about not getting it? Do you want to get more comfortable talking about big ideas in approachable ways? I know I want all of these things and more, which is why I started this podcast. I really hope you'll join me. You can stream Kimmy Not Kim podcast on all platforms and follow along at kimmynotkim.com and on Instagram at Kimmy Not Kim. See you soon.
WLPN LP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio. This is Nosy AF, and we are here with Kimmy Noonan.
You can also call me Kimmy Not Kim, which is like my sort of accidental brand. Speaking of how we don't want to have brands, but I do have one. So that's a funny story.
Okay.
It's a real quick. It's just basically, you know, my real name's Kimberly.
Okay.
Sure. But I was Kimmy since the day I was brought home from the hospital. That's just what they called me. And then I get to like 8, 9 years old maybe, and they were like, well, you know what, sweetie, that's just a baby name now, so you're going to want to start going by something else, Kim or Kimberly. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, how do you get to just change my name like that? So then I went through a phase where I tried out Kimberly and I tried out Kim. And I was just like, I don't like these. These don't fit me. No offense to the Kims and Kimberlys in the world. I have many friends who are wonderful people, but it's not my name, you know? And so I came to my parents and I did a whole presentation. I was like, okay, from now on, you're going to call me Kimmy. This is my name. And they all were like, oh, ha, 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 you know, so cute, little button. And I was like, whatever. Like, you know, that personality type. It's like, tell me I can't and I'll show you.
Yeah.
So then I was like, my goal in life is to be Grandma Kimmy. And you're all going to rue the day that you didn't think I was going to follow through on this. So I've been this adult named Kimmy now for all these years, and every time I introduce myself at a party or at a professional thing, it's usually like middle-aged white guys insist on just, oh, Kim. They just always cut it down to Kim, and it's like, how do you be a Midwesterner who's super polite? And also, like, not very confrontational, but just be like, no, for real. Like, when I tell you my name, like, I want you to call me that. It's why I said it.
Right.
So I didn't know how to do that. And I finally decided to make a joke out of it because that's how I make light of things. I joke stuff. So it's like, no, it's like Kimmy, not Kim. Like, and it stuck. And then it became my website, kimmynotkim.com. It kind of just rolls off the tongue.
Yes.
And then Instagram, and then it just kept happening. And then when I came for time for naming my podcast, I was like, I should come up with something, half of the job of an artist is to title things. I can do this. And I just kept like, if I wait to title this show, I'll never make it. Because I kept just in my head. So I was like, you know what, working title, Kimmy Not Kim podcast. We'll just call it that.
I like it.
And it just never changed. So it's my fun way now of saying, please call me Kimmy, not Kim.
Yes. You're nicer than me. I would just not respond. I would be like, if you don't call me Kimmy, I'm just not going to respond to you.
I know.
I would just go about the party not responding.
I'm so too nice for that. I'm way too polite. Yeah. So this is my passive-aggressive way of being polite still.
I love titling things. I feel like I can't get started on something unless there is a title. Even if I end up changing it before I get started, it needs to like be the container of what
it's a helpful
how
box.
I move forward. Yeah.
I tell people a lot like this myth that creativity is this boundless, boundaryless thing is like, no, that's so awful. Like, don't give people unlimited options. You got to give them lots of boundaries.
Yeah.
And within those boundaries, you can be so creative.
Yeah.
But if you just have a wide open sky of possibilities, it cripples everybody.
It's true.
It makes you incapable of doing it. So if the title is the thing that is your boundary, go for it, Sometimes it's medium, sometimes it's time, sometimes it's words, title. Yeah.
One thing I want to ask you when, you're a parent, and I was talking to Bobby Meyer about this whole like artist mother. There's like a whole thing, about
it's so wonderful.
So you said, okay.
Not the artist mother. No, being a mother is wonderful in some ways, but I mean like this movement toward affirming artist mothers is wonderful. Yeah.
If you said 10 years, like, so if I have a kid, I can't make work again in 10 years?
No, that's no. So I did hear this, and I wish I could attribute it to the right person because I can't remember who said it now. It was on a podcast a long time ago, but she said, you should not expect to get any significant work done for the first 3 years of each of your children's lives.
Okay.
So obviously you'll still be doing stuff probably, but your brain is it's too much. Like you're sleep deprived and you're on the ground doing other things,
Yeah.
So the first 3 years of my first child's life, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was doing everything, like working. I was an adjunct professor. I had a photography business. I was making art projects and a stay-at-home mom.
Wow.
So it was like during the naps and in the night and all this stuff. And it was overwhelming.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting.
It was horrible. Like, I don't know personality, learning opportunity. But then when my youngest was 4, then we had another child.
Okay.
So then that starts the clock again, another 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when you add all that up together, we had 2 kids. You're looking at 7 years. And then just so happened that when my second was 3, I enrolled her in like pre-K.
Right.
We're like, I got 3 hours twice a week or something. This is going to be great. Then the pandemic hit and shut the whole world down.
Oh, wow.
So then we were back at home living all in, with each other and stuff. So then that was another like year to 2 years of just kidding. But I was actually pretty creative during that time and pretty active. But so 10 years is an exaggeration for like the typical, but I would say that advice is accurate.
Yeah.
3 years for each kid.
Okay.
You're just not with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you're learning things about yourself, which inform your practice. And I also tell people who are becoming parents for the first time who are artists, it's like, don't rush that process too much, because it's that same thing about like the shoulds, like I should date my work or I should this and that. It's like you're gonna go through kind of the fire and brimstone of being a human, and then you're going to come out of it and you're going to have learned so many new things about your capacity, love, your endurance, like what matters most to you. And if you really let that be kind of like a weird grad school experience for 3 years where you're just all in it, when you come out, the work will actually be richer, stronger, more potent than it was before. But when you're fighting against it for all that time, you're just frustrated and it's hard to produce anything.
Yeah, it's sort of making me anxious listening to you.
I'm sorry. I do have that presence sometimes. I make people anxious.
I'm like, wow, that seems like a lot. But that's actually a really good tip, though, because I've never heard anybody say that. Like 3 years, give yourself.
Just obviously you'll still keep living and doing stuff,
sure.
but the brain doesn't quite work the same way it did before you have kids.
Yeah.
Once they're around.
So do you think you like your work now, like now that you've had your 10 years of parenting as residency or as grad school?
Yeah, mom school, parent school. I do. I like my work a lot better. Yeah, I like when I'm making more now. I think it's more, I think in a very strange way, I think it's more maternal. Mm-hmm. Like I've been thinking a lot about not wanting my work to be paternalistic, where it's like I don't want to be always like trying to teach everybody something, or the ubiquitous you that I'm speaking in. I'm like, always keep it local, keep it about me. Like the more personal it is, the more universal of an impact it can have. But there is something about being maternal toward the work and toward the materials, toward the ideas that I'm working with, where it's like there's compassion, there's slowness, there's love in it. When I look at my work from before being a mom, it was a lot more. I wasn't in it as much, and even my paintings were much more aggressive and more like visceral, and there's nothing wrong with that. But looking at it now, the transformation, I'm like, whoa, I'm more patient with my materials, or I'm more like I just want to give them a big hug.
Yeah.
And that was a big transformation because of learning it in real life,
Yeah.
Realizing that we all grow and learn slowly.
Right. It is slow, isn't it?
It's slow.
Yeah.
The long arc.
Now, that's something nobody told me, that it was all going to be a slow process. I thought it was supposed to be fast.
Yeah. the shooting star of celebrity artist, that's what I thought the goal was. And I'm like, I'm on Lumpen radio, so now everyone's going to know me. Duh. Obviously.
I see them forming outside now. It's about to get crazy.
But I think I had to get rid of that expectation that in order to be successful, you have to be famous.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, I'm sure actors deal with that. Like in the arts, there's something about in the arts that's like, this is the only way to gauge if it's working.
Yeah.
But there's so many other ways. And I think that coming with age, my world getting smaller, like the things I care about the most are right next to me all the time, like climbing on me and asking me to hug them and all this stuff. Realizing that impact can be deep and not wide, and that's still a form of success. And how do you richly offer gifts to the things and the people around you as well as you can? I think that's a worthy goal of success.
Absolutely. And I've been seeing celebrity, say like artists or even just like actors and whatnot, when you see them make things like YouTube videos or, there's that website Substack, which started out as like a newsletter platform and now it's like its own weird social media. Yeah. When folks have started to come over to those things and you're like, oh, wait a minute, is this like, why are you doing this?
Like you're a real person. Like I love it. I'm like, oh, look at you writing about like posting pictures of yourself in PJs, or I'm kind of a like Zendaya, Tom Holland fangirl. I don't know. That's like my one guilty pleasure for celebrity stuff. I love them. And for some reason, the posts I love of them the most are the ones where they're not made up and they're not on the red carpet. But it's like, look at them. They're just regular people. You know?
Like it.
They're making choices. They're trying things. And part of them being regular people is that they are creatives working in a creative industry.
Yeah.
And then other parts are that they, eat potato chips on the couch and watch movies with each other, or they whatever,
Yeah. And that they also like Real Housewives or celebrity gossip too.
Exactly. Probably not about themselves.
Right. Oh my gosh, I know, right? Yeah, I've been listening to Law Roach, who's like Zendaya's stylist. He has a book.
Cool.
And I've been listening to that. He's from Chicago.
Aww.
Yeah, which I was like, oh, cool. He had like a boutique and everything here. And I was like, oh, how cool. But yeah, like that, I feel like that wall is coming down so that folks are like diversifying, right? Because even him, like where it might be a stylist, he might be like in the back end. Like now stylists are becoming known for the work that they're doing and like these images that they're creating for, celebrities and whatnot. So it's all very interesting where you wouldn't have access to that before.
Yeah. This whole idea that like somehow, I mean, I'm listening to like a book, audiobook about Van Gogh right now, and it's kind of like, how did Van Gogh become Van Gogh?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just there's that whole existential crisis I had in undergrad of the like, painting has no purpose. It's a money market thing, versus the fact that there are these people who get a certain amount of time on the earth, and what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
And like, who's it going to impact? Will it be a positive impact? Will it be a negative one? Micro impacts all the way around. And, Van Gogh was a really cool dude who had some serious mental health, struggles in a time when there was no mental health care for him in those ways. And, now I'm like, all right, I have a certain amount of time. What am I going to do with it? And just how do I invest as much care and creativity and kindness into the people around me, into the city, honestly, into Chicago, which is like, this is my place.
Right.
Other places are great too, but I love Chicago.
Yeah. Do you tell your kids, hey, you have a certain amount of time. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, I know. I try not to stress them out. Talking about death.
You're
going
to color, or you're going to get with this? You're going to get your life together.
Yeah. Well, we do talk a lot about because my oldest is in 7th grade, and in Chicago, if you're not familiar with the CPS system, high school's a really big thing here. Like 7th grade GPA is the third of your admittance into high school, and then in 8th grade you take a placement test. It's a little bit like going to college. And so we're in that process right now. We're getting ready for the test, and we're going to start going on high school tours. And, our family ethos, which is just one of many, but we're like, what are we running toward? What are we trying to get you into the best high school so you'll get into the best college, so you'll get into the best blah, blah, blah. And then what are you going to do? Just like work yourself to the bone.
Yeah.
And be so. You can do all of those things. You can go to the best of the best, but are you going like richly present in your body and in your world? Are you going for a purpose that's bigger than yourself? Are you going with an idea that is exciting and that you really want to live into? Like, those are the questions that's like, we only have a little bit of time. Let's not worry about making as much money as possible. Let's worry about living as deeply as possible, or... Yeah, I think it's just one philosophy of many, but obviously money is important, i.e. the taxes conversation from before.
Right.
Have to hold them both in tension, just open-handed.
But the high schools are free, right?
They're free. Yeah, most of them are. There's private ones that you have to pay for, but they're free. So yeah, like if you want to... like Lane Tech, that's the school my kiddo wants to go to.
That seems the one that everybody wants to go to.
There's like over 4,000 students at Lane Tech.
I've seen the school.
Bigger than my college was,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't have kids, so I don't have like really like a barrier to like what. But I worked in a commercial where we shot at Lane Tech, and I was like, whoa, this is
huge.
This is for kids.
Yeah. all of our relatives all live in Ohio. So like whenever we explain this to them, they're like, what? Like you in most school systems in the United States, you just go to the school that you live in.
That's what I did. Yeah.
And I was like, well, here you have to pick your top 25 high schools to pick from. That's what you can apply to. And they were like, top 25? How many high schools are there? And I was like, there's like 160 or something like that. And like, it's just, there's a lot, It's a big city. We live in a huge, huge city. I think sometimes I forget that because it's sort of a neighborhood feeling city, and we all kind of get to know each other in some random way in some different circles. But we live in a big place.
High school is not a game, I see.
No,
I wonder
it's
if there's
not.
a documentary on that. That seems overwhelming.
I know there's a documentary about New York City preschool selections. They're even more intense than we are.
Whoa.
Like people started at preschool to get them up into the right Ivy League college. Right?
Yeah. Okay, there was a housewife that was talking about this,
Yeah.
about trying to get her kid in a certain preschool so that they can go, like, because the politicians sent their kids to that preschool. And then she wanted her kid to be in that network. And I'm like,
I know. It's a lot.
whoa.
It's a lot of pressure.
That is a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And you're putting on your kids, and it's like, ladies, is this about you, or do you want to just be invited to lunch with the politicians?
Yeah. And I mean, and to put it all back into the art context, it's a little bit like that idea of like, okay, here's your kid. You've spent so much time caring for them, teaching them, preparing them, and then you just got to let them go. Like they're going to go be themselves somewhere else without you.
Yeah.
And it's the same with art where it's like, I've spent all this time making this piece, researching it, thinking about it, like yelling at it, because I yell at my art a lot. We'd have conversations. And then I just gotta like let it go, like to a gallery, to a home, to an owner somewhere. Then they let it, it's not in my closet anymore, and it feels like you're letting part of yourself go when that happens.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's an emotional process that you have to practice, the letting go of things that matter the most to you, so that they can keep becoming bigger without you. And that's also one of the reasons I like making art, because in theory, these paintings I make or this documentation I've made of my pieces, the ideas, will live longer than me, I have artwork from dear friends who've passed away, and it's like, dang, like they touched this. This was their hands that made this, and that's a beautiful thing to be able to have something from a person. So
Yeah. And that's why I think the marketing piece of it all becomes overwhelming, because then they'll say, your art deserves it. That piece deserves to be marketed properly. And it's like,
or don't underestimate your value. You're so, it's like, I'm not, I don't have time to market all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I want to make it.
I know. Mm-hmm. And low-key, people have teams, but I'm like, these teams also come with a price.
For sure.
Like, they have families and stuff, too, that you have to pay.
And if you're not charging $1 bazillion, you got to charge a ton for the work.
Yep.
So that you can pay the people to market it. And then my biggest thing, too, is that, like, okay, if I have to charge thousands of dollars for every painting, then people I know who I care about in my community, in this city, can't afford my artwork.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's very, I think a life lived next to real art made by real people is one of the signs of a healthy, rich life. It's not the only one by any means, but like if you have things in your home that you live beside, this artwork, like it's technically just what it is, but it's almost like a mirror too. Like you live your life with it and you look at it and it reflects you back to yourself. And as you change, the way you see it changes and it becomes, like a relic in your life that means more to you than just the things it's made out of.
Yeah.
And if we only surround ourselves with, plastic things that, not that art can't be plastic, but, these things that aren't really personal or human, I think we're missing out. I think, people are missing out. So I want to make my work affordable so that there's even an option for someone to have that in their homes and in their lives.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. But then no marketing team,
Right. Oh, yeah, I definitely don't have a marketing team. This is definitely like, so it's like if you don't see that I've shared something, it's because it's overwhelming. I haven't had time, or I don't want to, it's like a whole other practice. I'm trying to think of marketing as a creative thing, but it still is overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. It is. I can tell I'm not in the healthiest mind space when I start thinking more about my follower numbers, my blah, blah, like how many people know about this, how many people saw my reel, all of that stuff, than what I'm making the work about.
Yeah.
Like if I start thinking more about those things, then I'm like, okay, this isn't, I don't think I'm personally doing well. This is a checks and balance moment. It's information. I'm going to go assess why I'm more worried about my popularity than my product, the thing I'm making,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you do your podcast, do you have like a time set, as we're like winding up in our conversation? Like, how is your like, let me think. How do I want to ask this? I'm wondering if you have like a set time where you go to like talk to yourself for like the episodes that you put out. And
like as preparation?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, or do you know like, okay, it's Wednesday, you're in your studio, let me stop and talk. Do you do something like that or no?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. I'm very sporadic and wild about it. It's often in season 2, I tried to prepare the schedule ahead of time. So I was like, I'm going to be so on top of things. And actually was really helpful. I had the whole year kind of mapped out. People knew when their dates were. I'm like, this is great. And then it didn't happen again after that. But yeah, I think... So mine is always in person. My conversations are always in person.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of over Zoom, in the whole season that we had before. And also I think that timing is very important. So I want to make sure that nothing gets in the way of the timing of our conversation.
Yeah.
And so it often becomes about scheduling, like, hey, when can you do it? Are you around? Are you traveling to Chicago? Whatever, I've gone on the road for the podcast before and gone to Iowa and Michigan, and we have to set that stuff up ahead of time. But something I do to prepare for it is I like to, so if I'm running real high, if I'm like really anxious and I got a lot of energy, I'm like, okay, I need to listen to the type of energy that I want in my voice. So I go find a podcast, either one of my own or someone else's, and I just listen to it for like an hour before, just to like, okay, this person's so calm and vibey. And then I come into the space kind of vibing as well. Or if I'm really tired and aloof, then I like listen to like music or a podcast that's like really bouncy to bring me up a little.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's one of my
so you like
strategies.
start to echo.
I'm reaching for what I think I need more of. Yeah.
I like that. So in a way, it becomes like a performance too, in a way.
Yeah. I think all communication is kind of a performance.
Yeah, that's true.
It's about I think humor is about timing. It's so much like to make someone laugh is basically a magic trick. You have to have so many stars aligned to get that to happen. And yeah, I just love all those little invisible, unseen nuances that somehow if you aggregate them in just the right way, it creates a star. It's this beautiful moment.
Yeah.
And it disappears again.
So what kind of things have you been talking about or do you have coming up for your podcast that...
Well, I've been in the last several episodes and the next several coming up. I was a part of a group show at Donkhaus German Cultural Center. They have a space in there that we used. And it was a group show. So basically I went through and had a conversation with each of the artists that were in that group show, or most of them, and we did it in the gallery so that we could literally be looking at the work that they had in the show. And then we talked about that piece as a gateway into their practice, which was really fun because usually it's a more generic, open conversation. But this was like, I'm going to say what I see in this piece, and then we're going to talk more. So that has been rolling out, and I've got a few more of those coming up still. So it's just like local artists who are at different stages in their career doing really cool work. And it's kind of a cold read is what I like to, like, I kind of want to do a cold read sub-series where I just go to the museum and say, like, this is what I see. This is why I think it's saying this. This is the color it's using. This is the size it is, to teach people how to unpack looking at artwork. Because it's something we learn in school, but not everybody learns that. So I really started enjoying that.
Yeah, I remember I went to an exhibition with a friend, and he never seen work, and he's only seen it like on TV. So he would go up to each artist, and he would be like, "So what was your motivation behind this?" And I'm like, "Oh,
that's a big question."
I know, but he just got it from watching TV or whatever.
It's an honest question, though.
Yeah, but I feel like his face, he's like just copying what he saw, and it's like, He didn't have to do all that. It's just so funny. So, like, each and every person, they would just be, you could see each artist just taking back. Because it's like
their face, like
8 o'clock at night, and you're walking with somebody who's, like, packing up, like, so what was your motivation behind this?
That's
and he's,
hard.
like, saying it in a way, like, shaking his head. Like, so now you look, like, sort of rude,
Or like he thinks he really knows what he's talking about.
Right.
Ooh.
And so then the artist will answer, like, and they're speaking art speak, right? Because he's approached them looking all, like, academic and collegiate about it. And he has no idea what they're saying, And it's just...
That's another one thing that I feel very strongly about is like just be yourself, like we don't have to impress each other. With like there's this whole world of acting like we got to impress each other. But that's with my podcast and hopefully with my work, it's like, what if you just said like, I don't understand this. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah.
And then that gives, the artist the opportunity to be like, oh, you're curious and you don't know much about academic art, so I'm not going to talk over your head. I'm going to meet you where you are.
Yeah.
Then you have a really meaningful, interesting conversation that actually makes an impact.
Right.
As opposed to all of us walking around pretending like we're big, fancy people who have all the words. And
right.
It's like,
we
whatever.
certainly are not.
No.
And I'm always asking people to explain these big words. It's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm sorry, what do you mean by supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? Like, what?
Oh, man, I used to, in grad school, man, oh, my goodness. I used to write down words on my folder, like, secretly when the professors would use them, because I was like, I have no idea. But you can't, like, look it up in class, so you just write it down, and I go home and I would just Google dozens of words every night, like, what is physiognomy, and what, and still I hear these words, and I'm a little bit triggered by them, but, and then one day I realized I'm using these words too. No!
Yeah.
I've become...
Well, I like your approach of, how you're making work, how you said, this is like not work for the blue collar worker, but like your lens of how you're seeing that work.
Yeah.
See, that's me talking fancy through the lens.
Through the lens. We all say lens. Oh, there's so many.
That's the new lens.
I say interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. I mean, really at the end of the day, it's like look at your work through your actual eyes instead of through what you think other people want to look at your work through. Because at my core, I am a blue collar kid.
Yeah.
I'm the first kid in my family to go to college. I happened to go to upper level of school, and I felt lost the whole time. And I made it. I did great. But, just, like, what does my work want from me? And then go forward. Like, try to be honest about that.
Yeah.
Like, maybe blue-collar people will like my work more if I'm honest about the fact that I'm also a blue-collar person, you know, who happens to be living in another world now because of the place my life took me on. But...
I love that. Well, if folks are interested,
Yeah.
where could they find all of this?
Well, you could check out my website, kimmynotkim.com. And Kimmy is spelled Kimmy, which is my preferred spelling. And I'm also on Instagram at kimmynotkim. Those are probably the two most direct ways to find me. And send me a message. Follow the podcast, Kimmy Not Kim Podcast, on any platform where you get your listening delights. Leave a rating, follow along. I'd love to hear from you. Make me happy.
Yes, I know she would love to hear from me because she's so nice.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much for talking with me.
Oh, it was so
today
fun.
on Lumpen Radio. I love it.
Yay,
It's
Lumpen.
been so nice.
I'm so happy that we got to spend some time together. It was really nice. And I'm in a real life studio.
I know, right? It's so cool. We're so official.
It's a little different than recording in my art studio.
For sure.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All up in your business. 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 All up in your all up in your all up in your business. Ooh, she's so nosy. Ooh, she's so nosy. Ooh, she's so nosy. Ooh, she's so nosy. All up in your business. 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 Nosy.